with our friend Tom Fletcher, the Undersecretary General for Humanitarian Affairs and Emergency Relief Coordinator, who arrived in Israel and the occupied Palestinian territory today for a week-long visit. During his travels, he will engage with authorities, our humanitarian partners, and those on the front lines of the response. Today in Ramallah, Mr. Fletcher met with Prime Minister Mohammed Mustafa and several Palestinian ministers from the Palestinian Authority. He also held separate meetings with Dr. Yunus Al-Khatib, president of the Palestinian Red Crescent Society, and that was to discuss the challenges that emergency responders are facing. In the coming days, Mr. Fletcher will meet with Israeli and Palestinian officials and visit areas in the West Bank, the Gaza Strip, and Israel to see the situation firsthand and get a better understanding of the obstacles facing aid partners and also look at how to best and improve our humanitarian operations. The Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs, meanwhile, tells us that we, along with our humanitarian partners, are expanding life-saving aid operations as more humanitarian supplies arrive in Gaza. OCHA says that displaced people continue to move between southern and northern Gaza as they reunite with their families and begin to try to rebuild their lives. As of today, we and our humanitarian partners estimate that more than 545,000 people have crossed from south to the north over the past week. More than 36,000 people have been observed moving from north to the south. OCHA also notes that protection partners have distributed more than 30,000 child identity bracelets to children under the age of 4 to prevent any family separation. This effort was critical as partners reportedly received more than 250 young people who'd been separated from their caregivers while making the trek back to North Gaza. In North Gaza Governorate, protection partners say they've also created 3 temporary sites that have been established in Beit Hanun, Beit Lahia, and Jabalia. Each of these 3 sites can host up to 5,000 people. Yesterday, the UN Population Fund reported the expansion of protection services for women in Jabalia and North Gaza, as well as Gaza City. And also yesterday, the World Food Program noted that prices have started to fall since the ceasefire took effect as more humanitarian commodities enter Gaza, although they still remain above pre-conflict levels. 1/3 of households reportedly have better access to food, but consumption remains significantly below levels prior to the escalation of hostilities. For most households, the primary obstacle is just lack of cash. Meanwhile, our partners are working on education, report that some 280,000 school-aged children in Gaza have registered in UNRWA's e-learning programs. And moving over to the West Bank, OCHA tells us that the Israeli forces' ongoing operations in Jenin and Tulkarm have expanded to the nearby governorate of Tubas, resulting in further death, destruction, and displacement. OCHA warns that once again lethal warlike tactics are being applied, raising concerns over the use of force that exceeds law enforcement standards. Yesterday in Jenin refugee camp, Israeli forces reportedly destroyed 20 residential structures where more than 50 families were living. OCHA also tells us that tight movement restrictions across the West Bank continue to hamper access to basic services, leaving Palestinians queuing for hours at Israeli checkpoints or forced to take lengthy detours to get to where they need to go. Also, I have an update from further up north and our colleagues at UNIFIL, the UN peacekeeping force in southern Lebanon. They are telling us that the area of operations along the Blue Line between Lebanon and Israel continue to be generally calm. They also note that continued IDF presence in several locations along the Blue Line, from Marwahin village towards the east to the Sheba farms, along with some gatherings by Lebanese civilians seeking to return. Yesterday, many civilians returned to the villages south of Lebanon, attempting to get many civilians returned to areas in South Lebanon, attempting to get to some villages. Despite the tension, the situation remains relatively calm, and peacekeepers did not observe any civilian injuries. Our Blue Helmets also are continuing to support the Lebanese armed forces on the ground, and they urge locals to follow the instructions given to them by the Lebanese armed forces, and that is for their own safety and their own security. On the humanitarian end in Lebanon, colleagues tell us that hundreds of thousands of people are beginning to return to their communities, but many are still on the move. According to the International Organization for Migration, more than 100,000 people remain displaced in Lebanon. We and our partners continue to provide support to returnees and displaced people. That support includes blankets, clothes, and other items. We also support mobile clinics with the delivery of medical supplies and medicine. According to UN Habitat, over 15,000 buildings have been damaged or destroyed in South Lebanon, generating 8 million tons of debris. We reiterate that immediate support is crucial to restore essential services, rebuild livelihoods, and drive recovery efforts. Turning to Syria, our special envoy for Syria, Geir Pedersen, who's been in Syria for the last weeks, engaging with caretaker authorities and a broad spectrum of Syrians and following all developments on the ground closely. In addition to his meetings with Ahmed al-Shara earlier in January, he had 2 follow-up meetings with the caretaker foreign minister, Assad al-Shaibani. He appreciated the substantive dialogue he had with both. While in Syria, Mr. Pedersen is also met with a diverse range of Syrian representatives, groups, and individuals from all parts of the country involved in a full range of political, community, religious, and organizational activities.